All right, everybody. I am here with Adrienne Barbeau, who I've been a huge fan of for years. So it's a real honor to have her on the show. And I start off all of these things, Adrienne, with the same question to everybody, which is kind of strange to ask you because I guess this is for people who have been living under a rock for the past 35, 40 years. Can you tell us about yourself?
Well, where do you want me to start, John?
I mean, well, I know you were born on the West Coast. You got the acting bug, while entertaining the troops. You were a go-go dancer in what might or may not have been a mafia club, and then got into theater and Broadway.
It was.
Yeah.
I found out later. After I wrote my memoir, or while I was writing my memoir, I started doing some research, and yeah, it was. A week after I graduated high school, the San Jose Civic Light Opera musical comedy review troupe, I think it was called 18 of us, went to what in those days was called the Orient, Southeast Asia, entertaining our GIs, entertaining our armed forces. That was my first paying job. I think we got $7 a day, but I went to New York. I had just turned 19, and took me about 8 months before I got my union card and for doing summer stock. And then I did a lot of, productions in and around New York. And in 1968, I ended up on Broadway. I played one of Tevye's daughters, Huddle, in Fiddler on the Roof in the Broadway production. And then that led to Grease, for which I was nominated for a Tony. And then that led to Norman Lear hearing about me and auditioning me and bringing me out to California to do a sitcom with Bea Arthur. I played Bea's daughter in Maude.
Yeah, and so you were obviously very humble there, but I think everybody should know that Adrienne was the first Rizzo. Absolutely, the number one. Forget the movie. She was the first.
I created the character, and now 50 years later, I've just finished collaborating on a book that will be released on June 7th. You can get it on Amazon already, but it's called Grease, Tell Me More, Tell Me More. And it is a compilation of stories and memories and photographs from over 100 actors who appeared on Broadway and in the first national companies, the first bus and truck companies. Everyone from John Travolta, who was Duty before he was ever, Danny, Zuko in the movie. Johnny Travolta was Duty in the national company of Grease on stage. And Richard Gere and Treat Williams and Jerry Zaks, Walter Bobby, famous Broadway directors, Mary Lou Henner, 100 people, some of whom readers will know and some of whom they will want to know more about after they read their stories. And so, Grease has sort of caught up with me 50 years later.
Very cool. And I just was going through doing my research, and I saw the very first thing on your IMDb was the made-for-TV, The Great Houdini. Was that your first foray into any type of film or television production after Broadway?
Well, and no. I had been doing Maude. I stopped. Maude was my first television show.
Okay.
But that was a 4-camera half-hour sitcom, which we filmed as a stage play. I mean, we had an audience come in and we did it start to finish, just like a stage play. Houdini was my first experience with a single camera. It was a television film, but a single camera drama. I was so ignorant of the medium that we shot the first scene. We shot what I came to learn was the master, the big scene, which shows where everybody is in the room and everything. And we finished the master, and I went back to my dressing room to change clothes. And then the assistant director came to get me because I had to do close-ups. And I didn't even know there were such a thing as close-ups, you know. Fortunately, nobody else knew I was on my way to change clothes for the next scene.
But yeah, you've mentioned it a couple of times now, and yeah, one of the things that you're well known for is being involved in not, you know, just an amazing show, but one of the best shows in the history of television, working alongside B. Arthur in Maude. Can you tell me what it's like to be a part of, you know, the history of that show, what it's like to do, you know, like you said, for camera television as compared to movies? And obviously I know that you have great love for B. Arthur, so I didn't know if you could speak to your relationship that you guys had over the years.
B was absolutely the best. She was just on all levels. She was, I mean, a brilliant comedian. There's no question about that. She was incredibly professional and incredibly giving, and off screen, I mean, she was a great cook, and I just loved her. You know, I was very fortunate with Maude. I came to realize years later that not every TV set was as loving of each other as we were, and as committed to just doing the best work possible, and as egoless as we all were. It was a family. It was my family for 6 years. And I was also very proud of being part of such an important show, a socially significant show. I mean, we dealt with issues that unfortunately we've gone so far backwards in terms of societal issues that we were really groundbreaking, and it's sort of sad to see what's happened in our country. But I was just really proud to be a part of that show.
And what is it like going from, you know, as you mentioned, it was kind of like doing a play, you know, because it was switching the cameras live with an audience. Was there that much of a difference going from theater to shooting Maude?
I would not so much a difference going from theater to shooting Maude as there was from going from theater to doing film. I would say that maybe for me, the major difference was it took me a while to understand that they had hired me to basically bring myself to the character. I didn't really, you know, when I did Rizzo or when I did Huddle or any of the other hundreds of plays that I've done, musicals that I've done, you know, you sort of created a character that wasn't necessarily, I mean, didn't walk like you, didn't talk like you, didn't, you know. With Carol on Maude, they really saw something in me that they thought was right for the character. They thought I was a good foil for B. I could play her daughter, and so I didn't have to act so much. And it took me a little while to understand that, to calm down and settle in. But if you've got to go from stage to television and you've never done it before, doing Norman Lear's show in those days was the way to go, because we did do it. We rehearsed for 4.5 days, and then we presented it to the audience.
Very cool. And I know, I believe in one of your quotes, and I'm obviously not going to try to do it verbatim because I don't have it in front of me, is that, you know, all the men in the audience, and heck, probably some of the women, really enjoyed you coming down the stairs, so to speak, in so many seats. What is it like being a sex symbol? It's not something I've ever had to worry about. So,
you know, I never saw myself as a sex symbol, and I never. Certainly, if you look at all my roles, I think, except maybe for Cannonball Run, I don't know if I can think of another one. wasn't really the way I was cast. I mean, I've always been cast as a strong woman or a capable woman. I want to say I don't know what it was like being a sex symbol, because I never thought I was. So I never saw myself that way, and I certainly didn't do anything to play off of it. You know, I mean, I didn't go out and look for those kinds of roles or anything.
Gotcha. And yeah, one of the big breaks in a film sense that you had was The Fog,
Yes.
which, you know, started your long working relationship with John Carpenter. And it was such an interesting role, you know, because you're the working at the radio and everything. You know, your character almost has like this godlike spot, like looking over everything. What was it like taking on that role and stepping into a film from, you know, Mr. Halloween, you know, Mr. Big Guy on, you know, on the scene here, and yeah, what was it like stepping into a film production like that?
Well, I had worked with John already. We did a television film for which he hired me because, again, he was attracted to strong women characters who had a sense of humor. And I think maybe because he had seen me on Maude or something else, I don't know, he thought that I was that kind of character. And so he hired me for a film called Someone's Watching Me. And I played, I think, the first lesbian on television. It was a horror film. I mean, not a horror film, it was a drama, I guess you'd call it. About a woman who believes that she is being, or a woman who finds out that she is being spied upon and stalked. And so I met John first as an actor and a director, and we became very close, and we eventually ended up getting married. And so I had the advantage of him writing the role of Stevie Wayne in The Fog for me. I was a little taken aback when he handed me the script, and it was a horror film, because I'd never seen a horror film before, except I did go to the first screening of Halloween, and I swore I'd never see another horror film in my life, because I don't like them. I don't like to be scared. But you know, Stevie turned out to be, I mean, here we are, what, 50 years later, 40 years later, and it's still one of the roles, it's still one of the films that people watch all the time.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. You know, I like that quite a bit. And this is one of, I think, at least 4 times that you've worked with Tom Atkins.
Yes, Tommy and I have worked together 4 times. We've never been in a scene together, but we've been in 4 films together. Yeah. The Fog and Creepshow and Two Evil Eyes and
Escape from New York, right?
Oh, and Escape, yes, Escape.
Now, obviously, you worked again, as we just mentioned, with Carpenter on Escape from New York. What is it like for an actor to work with a director that you've worked with before, that you trust, and you know the process? And I don't know if at this time, if you guys were in a relationship, but I don't know, like, you know, if that helped, you know, in any way. Like, what is it like working with somebody that you know that you can trust as a director?
Well, it's a dream. I mean, and especially for me, because I put a lot of faith in a director. I mean, you know, I am trusting the director to not let me be too big, or to make sure that I'm honest, or, you know, whatever. And all 4 of the major directors that you'll probably, you know, want to talk about, or that people do talk about, John Carpenter and George Romero and Wes Craven. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about Unearth. And I actually, one of the last times I really thought about this was I did the television series of Creepshow with Greg NICOTERO directing, and I had never met Greg before, or if I had met him, I'd never worked with him, certainly. And so, you know, there's a little apprehension when you get there, especially because I had done Creepshow with George, and knew, you know, within 15 minutes of being on the set that Greg was another director I could trust. And that makes all the difference in the world. I have worked with directors that I wouldn't even, you know, well, I would never work with again. Let's put it like that. You know?
Well, you had mentioned Wes Craven here, and before Batman, your first foray into the DC universe was Swamp Thing. And one of the things that I found in my research was one of the critics had said, regardless of anything else, there's always a great, Adrienne gives a great performance, you know, and I saw that in quite a few things, whether the movie was highly praised or not so much. It seemed everybody acknowledged how great your performances were. And what do you owe that as an actress, that no matter what you're in, everyone could at least say, you know, Adrienne was fantastic?
Oh my God. I could be flip and say, well, maybe I only take roles where I know I'm going to be okay. but that's, you know, I just try for honesty. I think that, I mean, no, that's not all. I make decisions about the character, you know, I try and really get to know the character, and to understand the character and understand why the character is doing what she's doing or saying what she's doing. Was it B who once said, you just say the words like you believe them, or you say the words like you mean them? I can't remember. But
and then I saw that you had a role in The Thing, and I thought to myself for a second, wait, there's no women in that movie. I mean, I don't know, maybe the dog's female, I don't know, or something, but that this is one of your, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of your first forays into voice acting, and
well,
and what is that like as compared to, you know, in front of the camera acting?
Well, it's a lot, for my mind, it's a lot easier because you don't have to get dressed up. You don't have to put on makeup. You know, you don't have to be on the set at 4:30 in the morning. But it does require a different approach. You have to make decisions about what's just happened, who you're speaking to, how you feel about who you're speaking to, how you feel about what you're saying, what's going on around you, all of those kinds of things. And again, when you talk about trusting directors, when we did Batman, and I played Catwoman, the animated series, we had a fantastic booth director, they call him, Andrea Romano. And I remember, you know, I had a scene where Catwoman had to jump off of a tall building, and she lands with a, you know, like that, and just a sound that she landed, and we did it. And of course, we're not even seeing storyboards. We're just seeing the words on the page. And Andrea would come back and say, Adrienne, it's a 20-story building, not just a 10-story building. Oh, okay, that's going to change the sound of the landing. You know what I mean? So again, you're in the hands of the director.
Yeah, and you know, thank you for mentioning that, because one of my all-time favorite shows is Batman the Animated Series, and I'm very sensitive to voices. You know, I don't know if that's because I do impressions or whatever it is, but this whole time that I've been talking to you here, I've been hearing Catwoman, and
Really?
you know, I keep hearing "almost got him" in my head from the end of that episode, or "Are you calling for ISIS?" And
About a year ago, maybe a little bit more, right on the election time, I was in New Zealand working on Cowboy Bebop in my hotel room, and the TV was on in the living room. I was in the bedroom, and I heard the TV show, and it was Batman, and I came in and I'm watching it, and I never watched the show when it was on. I did the series, but I never really watched them. And I'm looking at this, and I'm listening to this character of Catwoman, and I'm thinking, did I do that? That doesn't sound like my voice. Is that my? I had to look on IMDb to see if I had done that episode. I did all the episodes, but it just, I don't know. I guess she sounded different than I remember her being. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, hey, forget Zoe Kravitz, forget Michelle Pfeiffer, Adrienne Barbeau. There's Catwoman. It's all forever the Catwoman. And I just have to ask what it was like working with Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School. Like, he just seems like he's just such, historically just such an over the top, like, crazy guy, like, in a good way. But what was it like making a movie with Rodney?
He was over the top, but yes, in a good way. He was a real sweetheart. You couldn't get him to stand still. And, he was constantly trying to inject his nightclub act into the script. And the director was having to say, Rodney, that's really funny, but I don't think it works for the character right now, But he was just a joy to work with. He was really fun. I loved him, as did a lot of other ladies. he had a following, boy. They stood outside his dresser, his trailer, and just waiting to see if they could get an autograph or a kiss on the cheek or something. He was great.
What is all this I get no respect stuff from him? I don't know. Yeah. Just trying to keep an eye on time here. So I think I do have time for this. I just want to quickly just go back real quick. Because, my hero is Pittsburgh's own George Romero. And so what was it like shooting Creepshow and meeting George and working with him, and how I heard he's a actor's director, absolutely. So what was it like working on a production with George?
It was like family from the day I arrived in Pittsburgh. George and his wife at the time, Christina Romero, had Tommy and myself and Ed Harris and his wife, Amy Madigan, and Stephen King was there. And I don't remember who else. Had us all over for dinner the very first night. I think we were there. And from then on, it's funny, when George passed and I saw his age, I was sort of taken aback, because I always thought of George as my father. He was just this big teddy bear of a man that I just loved. And everything that's on the screen in terms of my character, Billy, is George is responsible for, because he just gave me the direction and told me what to do, and kept saying, no, you can go bigger, it's okay, trust me, you can go bigger. And that's not the kind of thing you usually do in a film, and she turned out to be memorable, to say the least. I owe all that to George, we did Two Evil Eyes together, and he knew always that I would go anywhere at the drop of a hat to work with him, and he didn't even have to pay me. I just loved him.
Gotcha. And amongst tons of other work and in voice work and everything, you were on a show that I thought was brilliant, which was Carnival on HBO. what is there to be said about having the it is television, but it might as well be film. And what is to have that freedom to do television for HBO where there's not any kind of limitation?
So at that time, in the early 2000s, yes, there was just, I see what you're saying. The difference between cable and network.
Yes, yes.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, and now, I mean, now it's all cable. You know, it's like, I don't know what's going on with the network. I guess maybe we took it, I don't know. I didn't really think about it at the time. It was one of my all-time favorite jobs. I love the character. I love the whole cast and crew and writers and directors. And I love the words. You know, I thought it was a really fascinating series. I love the metaphysics of it. And it was really disappointing when we didn't go on for a third season. But it was a very expensive show to produce. And for someone my age at the time to be able to play that character who was, you know, not a nurse or a lawyer or a judge, you know, she was a snake dancer who has a relationship with a boy that's 30 years younger than she is. I mean, she was really who dies and comes back to life. She was a fascinating character. And I knew her from the first audition for some reason. I don't think they ever expected to hire someone like me, but they did.
Well, Adrienne, you could still have relationships with men 30 years younger than you. Yeah, and just jumping ahead here for time's sake, I do want to talk about a film that you made recently here by a friend of mine, John Lyons. And John, you still not sending me any kind of screener copy. I'm just saying, pal. But the film is On Earth, and I believe you guys shot that up in the Erie area, right? Which is my old stomping grounds, close to my hometown of Edinburgh. What was it like shooting that movie with John and yeah, what was it like shooting in rural Northwest Pennsylvania?
It was great. I mean, we had some of the best corn I've ever had in my life and tomatoes. Oh my God, because we were shooting on a farm and it was a working farm. So when we weren't filming, they were selling, you know, in fact, there's a scene in the movie of me selling corn from the corn stand on the farm. I think the first thing that drew me to the film was that John told me, or I was told, that Mark Lucas was starring in it, and I'm a big fan of Mark's. And then I read the screenplay, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to do this. It's as you know, I assume it is. Well, they present it as an ecological horror film. It's, I don't know how, I mean, it is a horror film, part of it, but there's a lot more there. And what I really like about the film is we're dealing with fracking, which I'm sure you're aware of is a big controversial issue in Pennsylvania, especially. And John really presented both sides of the fracking controversy, for want of a better word, so that you understand why people are in favor of fracking or why and certainly why people are opposed. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to check it out myself. So yeah, that's one of the recent things that you have going on there. And but in terms of just encapsulation of your entire career here. And sorry, this is a very broad question, but what do you owe to so many years of continued success? You know, it wasn't a matter of, you know, what happened to Adrienne for 10 years? You know, she wasn't seen anywhere. You consistently worked and done quality work, you know, for all these years as an actress. If you were to talk to younger actors and actresses, what do you owe to such continued success and quality work?
I love to work. When I'm not acting, I'm either writing. I've got like 5 books out now, or one coming out. But I don't ever consider myself a writer. I consider myself an actor. And the strange thing is, for you to ask that question, my career always took and takes still, because I'm still plugging away, takes second place to my children. So I probably could have had a totally different career, but at one point when my older son was born, I made a definite decision that there were certain things I couldn't do. You know, I couldn't go back to New York and be on Broadway because his dad was here, and I wasn't going to do a film TV series because I couldn't work 14 hours a day. When Carnival came along, it was fantastic because there were so many of us in the cast that I maybe worked 3 days a week, and we worked here close to my home, and you know, about a half an hour, 45 minutes away. So many times I could get the kids to school and go to work, or come home and pick them up, and you know, and so it's interesting that you say, you know, it continued success. I mean, I took a lot of stuff just because I wanted to keep working, you know, stuff that wasn't good. I mean, I took one, I don't know if you've read my memoir, but there's a chapter in there about the Rat movie, which I took solely because it was filming in Moscow, and I wanted to go to Moscow. And it was an incredible experience from a life point of view, not necessarily making a good movie point of view, but there are some things I know I can do, and other things it's like, wow, what an incredible performance she gave. I could never do that. You know, it's so maybe it's because I know what to pick. How's that?
And do you have a favorite role?
I loved Ruthie in Carnival. I loved Ruthie in Carnival. I love Maggie in Escape because I love her morality. I love Stevie Wayne in The Fog. And of course, Billy. I mean, Billy is, you know, she's, I love Billy because she's just so outrageous, you know. And I like to think she's far afield from me, but she's so much fun. She's so much fun. Yeah, yeah. So those are my 4 favorites, I guess.
And just to kind of wrap things up, from an artist point of view, what is more important for you in accepting a role? Is it the quality of, say, the project? And I mean, you know, it's hard to tell that from looking at just the page, or the role that you're given. Is it obviously a perfect world, you'd like both, but is it the opportunity for what you can do as an actor, or in the hopes of what the final product will be in the quality of it?
I don't ever think about the final product. I never think about that. It's the words. It's the words on the page, not just my words, but you know, I'll get a script, and I can read, you know, I can read 10 pages and think, there's no way I'm not doing this. Well, I'll tell you a story. I got a screenplay from my agency with an offer to do a film for a director who had some notability. I wasn't aware of him. He also had some notability as a musician. And I read the first 20 pages and called the agency and said, "There's no way. I can't do this. I would never do this. I couldn't do this." And about a year later, I was at a horror convention, and Bill Moseley was there. Bill and I were in Carnival together. And Bill was signing autographs, and he had a line that was going out the door and down the block, you know. And I said, "Bill, this is fantastic. What movie are you? What did you just do? What are you signing?" He said, "Oh, it was The Devil's Rejects," and that's the one I turned down. It wasn't my kind of movie. It just wasn't. I thought I can't have my kids seeing me do this. It was just not my kind of movie. But so it always comes down, and I'm not saying it's not, I mean, obviously it was a huge success, you know, and I did end up working for Rob Zombie in his first Halloween movie. The scene got cut, but you know, that was great fun. It had not to do with Rob, but it just had to do with that specific project. But yeah, it's the words.
Adrienne, I can't thank you enough, not just for giving me your time here, but for all the years and memories. You know, like I said at the top, I've been a huge fan for so very long, and getting the honor of talking to you here has just been such a wonderful opportunity. I can't thank you enough, and hopefully someday we might be able to work together. And if nothing else, you know, maybe you can come and visit us here in Pittsburgh sometime soon.
I'll be happy to come to Pittsburgh anytime. Thank you, John. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adrienne. Have a great night. And yeah, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.